Let us begin with a man who feared poison so much. He drank it for breakfast. Meet King Demos, the resilient, ruler of Ironleaf, philosopher, alchemist, and part-time walking toxicology experiment. Demos wasn't just paranoid. He was dedicated. He believed the only way to conquer poison was to build a friendship with it. Every morning, he microdosed himself with toxins: arsenic, hemlock, powdered cobra venom. His breakfast smelled like a murder mystery. His enemies called him insane. His court called it Tuesday. Eventually, Demos became immune to nearly every known poison. His advisors called it a miracle. The Assassins' Union filed a formal complaint. But fate doesn't like to be outsmarted. One evening, betrayed and surrounded by traitors, Demos made a dramatic choice. He reached into his robe, pulled out a small glass vial labeled Finale, and drank. Nothing happened. Turns out, when you've been poisoning yourself for 20 years, poison stops working. Who knew? He stared at the bottle, then at the sky, then sighed. Turning to his captain, he muttered, "Plan B." And with a single clean sword thrust, King Demos, immune to every poison, died the old-fashioned way, stabbed. Outsmarted by his own cleverness. A man who conquered death, only to forget about basic steel. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Let's talk about pride. The kind that makes you ignore maps, generals, and the concept of gravity. The kind that whispers, "You're smarter, stronger, and louder than consequences." And that's exactly what brought down General Varos of the Eastern Legion, master of war, destroyer of common sense. Varos was brilliant. Just ask him. He led 20,000 men into the marshes of Valkura. Despite every advisor screaming, "That's a swamp," his answer, "I bathe in risk." By nightfall, he was bathing in mud and arrows. His army floundered, his horses vanished, his boots got stuck. But did he retreat? Of course not. "Retreat is for poets," he shouted. Moments later, a javelin turned him into a very short poem. A haiku, really. They buried what they could find. The rest sank with his ego. But Varos wasn't alone. Meet Sigvald the Roarer, Viking warlord, beard enthusiast, and man with one strategy: yell louder than anyone else. He believed screaming made his sword sharper, that shields were for cowards, that silence was an insult. At the Battle of Deep Fjord, he stood on a hill, shirtless in a blizzard, and shouted, "Come face me." The enemy sent arrows instead. By the time Sigvald reached them, he looked more porcupine than Viking. But to his credit, he never stopped roaring. His final word? Loud, cut off, mid-growl. Legendary? Then there's Queen Eleonora, the lavish, a monarch who believed fashion was mightier than famine. When her kingdom struggled, she taxed bread and water to fund her diamond dress. Her philosophy? If I sparkle hard enough, no one will revolt. Spoiler, they revolted. Torches outside her palace. She refused to flee. "I am the light," she said, which unfortunately made her very easy to aim at. A peasant tossed a rock. Just one, perfect arc, cracked her tiara like a walnut. That was the end of Queen Eleonora, the world's most flammable fashion icon. And finally, let's not forget Zayun the Eternal, high priest, self-proclaimed immortal, and walking cautionary tale. He predicted eclipses, storms, pregnancies. His followers adored him. Then one day he stood before the crowd and declared, "Behold, I am beyond death." To prove it, he stepped into a pit of ceremonial fire. The gods watched and said nothing. He burned, spectacularly. His ashes were collected in 27 urns, each labeled Confidence. To this day, Whenever someone makes a terrible decision with absolute certainty, people just nod and say, Zayun energy. Some invent to solve problems, others invent to make history, and a few invent themselves straight into the afterlife. Let's begin with Archibald Scarne, engineer, visionary, and man who should not have been allowed near steam. Scarne's dream? A self-cleaning carriage. His method? Combine soap, pressure, and fire. What could possibly go wrong? Well, everything. On launch day, nobles gathered. Scarne climbed in, shouted, "Observe genius," and pressed the activation lever. The carriage didn't clean itself. It launched 30 feet into the air, exploded mid-spin, and landed in a bakery. He was found covered in eclairs, dead, but very fragrant. Next, we have Professor Aurelia Glass, inventor of the Harmony Engine, a machine designed to heal the soul through pure sound. According to her, it used harmonic resonance to align emotional frequencies. According to her neighbors, it made their ears bleed. During its grand debut, she cranked the machine to maximum. Glass shattered. Birds fell from the sky. The audience collapsed in waves. And Professor Glass? Smiling until her own heart stopped mid-vibration. Her last words were, "Do you hear it?" Yes, everyone did. Forever. Now meet Lars Ultman, tech pioneer, and the first man to install a brain AI interface into his own head. He called it neural liberation. His wife called it a Tuesday mistake. It worked brilliantly until the software updated mid-thought. He paused mid-sentence, eyes rolled back, and he whispered, "The meaning of life is system error, hard crash. Medical report read, death by cognitive buffering. Inspiring and deeply unsettling." Next on our tribute list, Girolamo Vasari, a Renaissance painter who demanded realism, even in death. He wanted his paintings to glow with life, so he used molten gold for halos. One slip, one droplet, one screen. He slipped backward, tripped over a pallet, and face-planted into divine inspiration. The painting? Stunning. The halo? Still glowing. Contains trace amounts of Vasari. And finally, the king of catastrophic creativity, Captain Elric, skyfish, drone, airship inventor, and part-time lunatic. His flying vessel had 12 decks, 18 engines, and a goat. For morale, he said, during its maiden voyage, he declared, "This ship shall never land." It didn't. A lightning bolt struck the helm. The ship exploded in slow motion. The goat survived. Captain Drome, however, soared into legend. Literally. They never found his boots. His statue now stands in the harbor, saluting the sky. The plaque reads, "He aimed high." Briefly, not every death comes with honor, drama, or even basic logic. Some just come with a donkey, a fig, and a laugh that went too far. Let's begin with Heron of Atrax, philosopher, visionary, and the man who laughed himself to death. One afternoon, Heron watched as a donkey wandered into his garden, casually munched on his figs, and, for reasons unknown, began drinking wine from a fallen goblet. Heron chuckled, then giggled, then howled, and then fell out of his chair gasping for air. His students tried to stop him. Too late. Cause of death: uncontrollable laughter. Triggered by intoxicated livestock. The donkey survived. Heron did not. Next, Lord Reginald Blitters, nobleman, duelist, and amateur stage performer. At a royal ball, he attempted what he called the perfect bow. Velvet shoes, waxed marble floor, 77 descending stairs. He bowed, he slipped, he bounced. Witnesses said he struck every single step on the way down. He landed in a decorative flower arrangement and expired surrounded by roses and shattered dignity. The papers called it a fall from grace and into geraniums. Let's now travel east to Yakamura Nodo, revered samurai, master swordsman, and victim of poultry. Nodo was meditating beside a lake when a goose, yes, a goose, took offense to his posture. The samurai remained still. The goose did not. With one angry honk and a flurry of wings, it attacked. Nodo leapt to defend his honor. He slipped, fell on a rock, and was instantly unconscious. The goose, apparently satisfied, walked away victorious. Locals now call that lake Beak's End. Moving on. We must speak of Baroness Claudette de Fromage, gourmand, socialite, and connoisseur of all things cheese. At a royal banquet, she declared she would sample every cheese on display, all 147. No one out-cheeses me, she proclaimed. Hours later, she collapsed atop a wheel of brie, murmuring, "So creamy." The physician declared, heart failure due to extreme dairy enthusiasm. Her tombstone reads, lived richly, died cheesily. And finally, because of course there's one more, we honor Philibert the Spectacular, fire eater, circus master, and man who didn't believe in rehearsal. For his finale, he attempted to juggle 3 torches while blindfolded on a tightrope above a cage of tigers. First torch hit his shoulder. Second lit the rope. Third landed in the tiger cage. Philibert was last seen saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, behold." He didn't finish the sentence. The tigers did. The audience gave a standing ovation. They thought it was part of the act. Trust is a beautiful thing, until someone poisons it. Tonight we raise a goblet carefully to the victims of betrayal, the ones who didn't fall to enemies, but to friends, family, and the worst villain of all, surprise. Let's begin with Prince Aurex of Valdora, diplomat, idealist, and man who believed family meant everything. He shared meals with his brother, played chess with him, trusted him completely. Then one morning, over breakfast, Aurex declared he'd chosen his daughter as heir to the throne. His brother smiled, raised his cup, and stabbed him in the stomach with a butter knife. Aurex fell face first into a plate of figs. The official cause of death? Succession dispute. The servants called it brunch with a plot twist. The brother ruled for 6 months, then choked on a grape. Nobody cried. Next, we remember Sir Aldrich the Steadfast, knight, war hero, and the king's most loyal defender. He fought beside his king in 5 wars, took an arrow for him, saved his life twice. Too bad he got a bit popular. The king, suspicious and insecure, invited Aldrich on a private hunting trip. The boars came back. Aldrich didn't. The royal story claimed a tragic animal attack. Witnesses noticed the boars were unarmed, and Aldrich's armor was suspiciously clean. Poetic justice came years later, when the king fell off a horse into a pit, allegedly chasing a boar. Then there's Cassina the Bright, philosopher, advisor, and the smartest person in any room, which unfortunately included the emperor. She warned him not to invade the steppes. He ignored her. Lost 30,000 men. Upon return, he accused her of demoralizing the empire. That evening, her tea was flavored with nightshade. She died with a smirk and a note on her desk that read, "Told you so." Finally, we remember Julian the Pact Maker, a king who truly believed peace was possible. He united 4 kingdoms through diplomacy, hosted a massive banquet to celebrate a historic peace treaty. Each of the other 4 kings toasted to eternal friendship. Each of them had secretly poisoned his wine. None of them knew the others had done the same. Julian died from a cocktail of treachery. The official record called it the most cooperative assassination in history. In the end, Julian did bring everyone together in murder, a true unifier to the last drop. Some fight for justice, some for honor, and then there are those who fight because punching things makes them feel alive. Tonight, we pay tribute to the warriors who didn't know the meaning of enough and died proving it. Let's start with General Korak the Unyielding, conqueror of cities, slayer of kings, and proud owner of exactly 0 reverse gears. Korak had one rule: never retreat, which is brave, unless you're yelling it while standing in the middle of a thunderstorm. Surrounded, outnumbered, mud up to his knees, his men begged him to fall back. He raised his sword to the sky and shouted, "The gods fear me!" The gods responded with a bolt of lightning so big, birds fell from nearby trees. Korak died instantly. His armor melted into a statue. Technically impressive. Spiritually hilarious. Now we charge to Lady Zephyra of the Iron March, undefeated duelist, battlefield poet, and women with extreme reaction to being bumped into. Zephyra challenged over 100 opponents. Many didn't even know they were in a duel. One day, a cloaked stranger brushed past her in the marketplace. "You dare insult my honor," she barked. The stranger replied, "I'm just shopping." 10 seconds later, Zephyra was flat on the ground, disarmed, and slightly on fire. Turns out, the stranger was Whisperblade, a retired swordmaster trying to buy plums. Zephyra's last words? Well played. Next. Terran the Bloodhowler, shaman, berserker, full-time screener. He claimed his war cry could shake mountains and curdle blood. Mostly it curdled milk. Still impressive. At the Battle of Red Hill, Terran spotted an enemy force of 400 and charged alone. When asked later why, survivors said he shouted something about an insult to his beard. The enemy didn't even fight him. They just moved out of the way. Terran ran directly off a cliff, yelling, "I regret, not here." He was never found. Only his boots. To this day, if you scream into that canyon, the echo screams back. And finally, Commander Brianna Goldfang, decorated general, tactician, and someone who genuinely enjoyed explosions. After winning a decisive siege, she ordered one last cannon volley for fun. Unfortunately, she stood in the wrong place. The cannon fired, Brianna was launched into the sky, arms crossed, expression unfazed. Witnesses say she vanished like a shooting star. Glorious. Tragic. Loud. Her statue stands near the battlefield, saluting with one hand, holding a cannonball in the other. The plaque reads, "Went out with a bang." Some say timing is everything. They're right. And tonight we meet the poor souls who did the right thing at the absolute worst time. Starting with Sir Calwyn the Prompt, a knight so punctual he once arrived to his own duel before his opponent was even born. During the siege of Blackmere, Calwyn led the charge 5 minutes ahead of schedule. His army hadn't put their boots on. The enemy had. He charged alone, waving a banner, shouting, "For glory!" What he got was 67 arrows, 4 spears, and a very confused enemy captain who said, "Is this the scout?" His army arrived moments later, too late for Calwyn. Right on time for a cautionary tale. Next, let's talk about Maestra Bellanora, opera singer, diva, and voice so powerful she could hit a note that made grown men cry and windows resign. One evening, she performed a satirical ballad mocking the emperor's jawline. It was tasteful, clever, only mildly treasonous. She timed the performance perfectly, except the emperor arrived early. He walked in during the verse about his noble double chin. She tried to put it into a love song. The guards weren't fans of jazz improvisation. She was arrested mid-high note. Technically, she hit it. She also hit the dungeon floor. Hard. Now meet Dano the Sure, adventurer, explorer, and man whose favorite phrase was, "Now's the moment." He found the fabled Temple of Gloom. The locals said, "Wait until sunrise." He said, "Cowards wait. Legends leap. He leapt. 30 seconds in, he triggered a pressure plate, a frog-based curse, and a floor collapse. He landed in a pit of venomous amphibians. His last words were reportedly, "So many frogs." They found his body years later, still surrounded by frogs, all of them perfectly calm. It's said he taught them patience. And finally, Countess Morel of Donspire, socialite, strategist, and lover of parties with unfortunate scheduling. The night before her city was besieged, she hosted a masquerade ball called A Toast to Survival. She wore golden armor, themed hors d'oeuvres, string quartet. At the stroke of midnight, she raised her glass and shouted, "To life." At that exact moment, a catapult stone crashed through the ballroom ceiling, instantly flattening the buffet table. And her. The guests fled. The city fell. The string quartet kept playing, professionals to the end. Morel was buried with her mask, and a warning: don't celebrate early. Sometimes fate gets the wrong address, and sometimes that address is yours. Tonight, we explore the deaths that weren't planned, weren't fair, and weren't even meant for the person who died. First, we have Lord Fenwick of Greenmere, a pacifist, bird lover, and man who absolutely should have double-checked the map. He was sent to deliver a peace treaty to the neighboring kingdom of Eastmarch. He accidentally rode into Westmarch. To his credit, he waved a white flag, wore formal robes, and shouted, "I come in peace." To their credit, the Westmarch archers didn't hear him. Over the drums, he took 6 arrows to the chest, 1 to the treaty, and fell dramatically onto his horse's neck, which also didn't survive. He was buried under a flag that said, "Diplomacy." The wrong kingdom sent flowers. Next, Brother Tolvus, humble monk, healer, and the worst handwriting in the monastery. He wrote prescriptions, gentle ones, soothing herbs, usually. One unfortunate winter, he meant to write poppy oil on a scroll. What he wrote looked suspiciously like poison boil. The town captain, trying to cure his insomnia, drank it all in one go. He died instantly. The funeral was tasteful. The monk was devastated. He swore never to write again. Instead, he switched to interpretive dance, which caused 2 injuries and 1 accidental engagement. Now let's remember Sir Ganeth the Gold, nobleman, fencer, and fashion enthusiast. He signed up for the annual Gentleman's Exhibition Duel. What he walked into was the National Deathmatch Championship. He arrived in ceremonial gold-trimmed armor. His opponent arrived with scars, a mace, and a grudge against glitter. Ganeth began with a bow. The other man began with a scream. 3 seconds later, Ganeth was airborne. 5 seconds later, he wasn't. The organizers apologized. Eventually, his epitaph reads, "Entered the wrong arena. Still made an impression." And finally, Queen Leontia the Silent. Clever, calculating, and almost too smart for her own good. She faked her death to escape the court's endless politics. Sleeping drought, fake funeral, secret tomb. Everything was perfect. Except one thing. No one dug the tunnel to get her out. She woke up in a sealed crypt. She knocked, loudly. The guards above thought it was a ghost and locked the door tighter. 3 years later, a new king renovated the catacombs. Inside her tomb, they found scratch marks and a message carved in stone. Next time, hire professionals. There are accidents. There are coincidences. And then, there are the kinds of deaths that make you squint at the sky and mutter, "Really?" Tonight, we honor those who died at the precise intersection of bad luck and cosmic sarcasm. First, meet Sir Wendell of Crowswatch, engineer, perfectionist, and builder of the most indestructible tower in the realm. It was stormproof, fireproof, siege-proof. He had it blessed by 3 different religions just to be safe, and on the day of its unveiling, nobles gathered, trumpets blared. Sorrento stepped up to the podium, and a meteor fell directly on him. The tower? Untouched. Immaculate. Window? Powder. The next day's headline read, "Architect defeated by the sky." Then there was Eliza the Flameproof, fire dancer, stage legend, and survivor of 3 volcanoes. She'd retired in glory. One final performance, indoors, for a small tavern crowd. She twirled, she spun, she got too close to a candle. It tipped, the curtain caught, and so did her famously flammable farewell dress. She yelled, "I am born of flame." Technically true, also tragically final. The tavern was rebuilt. Her legacy wasn't. Now we travel to Professor Sylvanus, astronomer, philosopher, and man obsessed with comets. He predicted the exact moment a rare comet would pass over the capital. On the day it arrived, he ran into the square, screaming, "Behold, a wonder of the heavens!" Everyone looked up. No one saw the cart full of bricks barreling down the hill behind them. Sylvanus didn't either. The comet passed in silence. The cart didn't. His scrolls flew into the air like confetti. His final lesson? Never turn your back on gravity. And finally, Captain Marin Redwake, pirate legend, terror of the Sapphire Sea, and irrationally terrified of whales. He swore whales were spies from Neptune, avoided them, cursed them. Once insulted one in a tavern painting. Then one foggy morning, his ship struck something soft. He shouted, "Kraken!" It was a sleeping whale. Startled, the whale rolled, right on top of the ship. The crew survived. The parrot escaped. Redwake did not. To this day, sailors avoid that stretch of sea, not because of whales, but because of bad timing. Confidence can inspire nations. Overconfidence? That just inspires obituaries. Tonight, we pay tribute to those who believed they were invincible until reality reminded them they weren't. First up, Thaddeus von Bellwright, inventor, aristocrat, and proud owner of a death wish disguised as a blueprint. He decided mankind was ready to fly. His prototype? Wings made from wine barrels and sheer ego. At his estate's garden party, he climbed to the roof and announced, "Today, I defy gravity." Gravity replied immediately. He leapt, the wings splintered. The guests gasped. He landed in a dessert cart filled with lemon tarts. The tarts survived, Thaddeus did not. His gravestone reads, "Briefly airborne." Next, Lady Callistra Flameheart, swordwoman, poet, and lover of dramatic timing. Before every duel, she'd deliver a monologue. Her final one lasted 3.5 minutes. She flourished, she gestured, she rhymed blade with glade 6 times. Her opponent sneezed halfway through and accidentally stabbed her. Her dying words? That ruins the cadence. Then there's Duke Harwin of Gallowmere, chess genius, war strategist, and man allergic to common sense. He once challenged a seasoned general to a battle of wits. With live troops, Harwin brought ideas. The general brought cannons. Harwin's tent was destroyed before he could move his first pawn. Witnesses say he stood proudly on the hill, arms crossed, muttering, "They fear my intellect." Witnesses say he stood proudly on the hill, arms crossed, muttering, "They fear my intellect." They didn't. They just couldn't hear him over the explosions. He was buried with his chessboard, still mid-game. Checkmate, Duke. And finally, Jorvik the Thunderborn, northern warlord, fearless leader, and self-declared lightning magnet. He believed the gods loved him. Why? because he'd never been struck by lightning. He took that as divine protection. So, one night during a storm, he climbed a metal watchtower and shouted, "Come at me, sky!" The sky obliged. Witnesses described it as the brightest man-made object ever seen. They found his boots fused to the tower. Nothing else. The next day, his tribe changed its motto from "Fear no storm" to "Use caution with storms." Wise. Some believed they were blessed. Some believed they were chosen. And all of them ended up very, very dead. Tonight, we look at the people who thought they were untouchable and learned otherwise. First, meet Father Malric, traveling preacher, spiritual healer, and self-proclaimed shield of the divine. He claimed he was protected by the gods, immune to sin, fear, and, critically, arrows. One day, during a heated village feud, he stood between two archers, raised both arms, and declared, "No violence shall pass through me." And then both archers sneezed and fired. The gods were silent. Malric was not. They buried him under a small statue labeled, "He meant well." Next up, Captain Hara Grell, sea raider, storm chaser, and woman who once tried to duel thunder. She wore full metal armor during storms to prove lightning respected her. After 15 battles and 0 incidents, she was convinced she was blessed. So, one night during a thunderstorm, she climbed her ship's mast, raised her sword, and yelled, "I drink from the clouds." Lightning responded by turning her into an extremely dramatic candle. Her boots fused to the deck. Her sword melted into the mast. The ship was fine. Now, let's visit Gerard of Oakrun, nobleman, amateur alchemist, and obsessive poison tester. He believed he built immunity by microdosing everything from hemlock to nightshade. He once drank mercury at a banquet just to prove a point. He lived. Until one feast, when the chef mixed wild honey with an herbal tonic, it reacted violently. His last words were, unexpected finish. His journals are now used in poisoner training courses under the section titled, How to Get Cocky and Die. And finally, Baroness Yelva Ironheart. She claimed her heart was forged, not born. She boasted that nothing could touch her emotionally or physically. She rejected every romantic advance with the phrase, "My heart is a fortress." Until one day, a wandering bard challenged her to a duel of feelings. He read a poem so beautiful it made half the audience cry. Yelva clutched her chest and dropped. Doctors ruled it cardiac arrest. The bard said she felt something. Her statue now stands in the royal garden, one hand on her chest, the other holding a broken quill. The plaque simply reads, "Struck by feelings, fatal." Some want to be remembered, others demand it, preferably with fireworks, confetti, and dramatic music. Tonight, we remember the bold souls who died trying to make an impression so big it became their obituary. First, there was Count Belleros the Magnificent, public speaker, tax reformer, and man who believed every speech should end with pyrotechnics. One winter, while addressing the kingdom's budget crisis, he ordered fireworks to be set off inside the Great Hall. "I want the people to feel hope," he declared. What they felt was heat. The roof caught fire. The chandelier fell. Belleros applauded once before it hit him. Cause of death, fiscal flare. Next, Serafina Goldlace, fashion icon, socialite, and woman who believed subtlety was a disease. Her final dress had a 15-foot train, 3 live birds, and a built-in fog machine. It also brushed against a candelabra. The birds escaped. The train didn't. She was last seen spinning dramatically, yelling, "I am the moment." She was. Her statue outside the Royal Opera House sparkles at sunset and smells faintly of singed feathers. Then came Don Ferrico of Velmont, nobleman, romantic, and the human cannonball of court entrances. For his cousin's wedding, he had himself fired from a catapult while holding the rings. He landed perfectly. The crowd cheered. Then the welcome banner fell off the balcony and crushed him. He died with a smile, 2 rings in hand, and one very confused priest standing over him. And finally, Nerlin the Echo, illusionist, crowd pleaser, and a man who never rehearsed. At a royal festival, he attempted the disappearing throne trick. Unfortunately, he succeeded in making the throne vanish, while the queen was still sitting on it. She hit the floor. He hit the moat, while chained. The court thought it was part of the act, until Nerlin didn't resurface. His hat washed ashore 3 days later. The queen kept it as a warning.